I always like to say I am known in my family for being a good eater and a good talker. And talking and eating are my favorite things. And and to get a tongue cancer diagnosis, I always say is crazy. It was just my two favorite things wiped out for a little while.
Welcome to Cancer Bites, bold voices, big insights, and unstoppable energy, because cancer doesn't get the last word.
Thanks so much for joining us today for yet another podcast of Cancer Bites. So, the title this week is Self-Discovery and Healing, Empowerment and Taking Charge of Your Future. And our guest is the lovely, the wonderful Candice Suarez, the author of Draft You, that's the name of her latest book, a life drafting journal to self-discovery, goal setting, and career planning for teens and young adults. But I will say that myself as an adult, I could do with that book. So I think
Absolutely.
it's definitely a book for everyone.
I, I'm planning an adult version as well, so.
Great, wonderful. That is good to hear. So on the show, on Cancer Bites, we explore stories, the science, and the soul behind healing and survivorship. And we want to also move the conversation more into how do we thrive? How do we make ourselves feel good? How do we embrace joy through difficult times? And definitely our guest today is just the person to talk about that. I think of Candice as an inspirational powerhouse who is your life coach. You specialize in working with teens, which is definitely not easy, as well as anyone else in transitions of like life change or, when you're an empty nester or changes of career, which many of us can relate to, particularly since COVID. Many people can relate to these major transitions, right? And Candice herself is a tongue cancer survivor, a former school counselor, and a published author. And your story of perseverance and resilience in the 20 years, more than 20 years that you have supported students, I think is really a place of wisdom and healing for all of us who can join us here on Cancer Bites. So I feel blessed that we can hear your insights, Candice, and I'll jump right into asking the first question about your cancer journey. And with your permission, we're going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Take us back to that moment of when the cancer journey began.
Yeah, so it was 2021 was when it started. And I always like to say I am known in my family for being a good eater and a good talker. And talking and eating are my favorite things. And and to get a tongue cancer diagnosis, I always say is crazy. It was just my two favorite things wiped out for a little while. But in 2021, it started with an ulcer in the back of my tongue that would not go away. And I had had a history of going back probably 10, 12 years of having white patches on my tongue that would occasionally be biopsied and would always be non-concerning, just something to keep an eye on. And this time, it's one of those things in the back of your head when you know, but you just don't really want to admit that you know. But it just wouldn't go away. So after a couple months, I went to my family doctor, who referred me to a dentist, who referred me to an oral surgeon. Oral surgeon took a biopsy, and by December of 2021, it was diagnosed as squamous cell carcinoma of the tongue. Yeah. And at that point, it was so painful
Ooh.
that I had stopped speaking. I was texting with my family. I stopped working. I wasn't eating, so I was losing tons of weight.
Mm.
And so when I was finally passed up specialist, I landed with my would-be surgeon in January, February.
Okay.
And by that point, they said, okay, a couple of things. We recommend a feeding tube,
Yeah.
which would have had to have taken place after anyway, but I had that before the surgery.
Mhm.
Feeding tube and lots of pain medication.
Yeah.
I was on 24/7 pain medication, alternating between heavy duty stuff, Tylenol, and Advil. Yeah, just
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, when you describe that, those core identities of who you are, eating and talking, that you stop doing that,
Stop.
it really hits me hard and think, and
Yeah.
I can imagine the people around you being affected, but of course, more you, that core of who you think you are. So
Yeah.
I think getting the strength and feeling grounded through that time. And I also appreciate that you shared that you weren't necessarily the happiest of people during that time, right? You would obviously
Oh,
get upset.
no, I was like, I remember it was Christmas and New Year's,
Oh,
and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think where did you find the strength, do you think, and that perseverance and resilience to keep going through this time?
I would say I wish as a life coach looking back on it, I wish I could say that I journaled my way through it and was in touch with my feelings
Yeah,
because that's what I would recommend to people now.
yeah.
But at the time, I did everything I could to self-soothe.
Hmm.
I rewatched Gilmore Girls because it was comfortable.
Yeah, yeah,
I reread a nine-book series, fantasy fiction, because, and I've read this since that rewatching and rereading things is a comfort
yeah,
because I'm not going to be blindsided by something.
yeah.
It's all predictable and safe,
Hmm.
and that was what I needed.
Wow, I think that's funny. At some level, we can relate to that. I too have reread things through difficult times in my life.
Yeah.
One was a very interesting, probably more than 9-part book about cats. And of course the Warrior series it's called. They were actually my son's books when he was like
I
12, 13.
I I was reading Wheel of Time, which
Yeah,
I think is like 13.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Insane. Yeah.
you need the predictability, right? And you need
Yeah.
to know to feel that sense of control. So I
Hmm.
think we really appreciate that. Yes, as a life coach, there's one part of you that's the professional, but there's the other part of you as the woman, the person going through all this. So we can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
So
And it's like giving myself the grace to
yeah.
know what I needed and just check out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's great. We all
Yeah.
need that. And I think
Mhm.
so. So coming to this latest book, Draft You, which I just love that name, a life drafting journal. What was the motivation behind that book?
Yeah, so life drafting was something I coined because it's that idea that we plan, right? We envision what we want our future to be. We set goals, and sometimes we are so blinders on, full speed ahead, that if something comes along and knocks us off of our path, whether it's out of our control or not, it leaves us spinning, right? And we're so blindsided by it, and we're so devastated by it. Whereas life drafting, the intention of it is that we plan, but we think of it as a draft, always and forever, right? You never have a final, perfect, complete version of you. You are always a work in progress. And my mission is, as I work with teenagers, I do college admissions coaching mostly. So when I'm working with them and we're talking about a career, right? I am trying to instill in them a flexibility,
Mm.
right? But they come to me sometimes, they come to me in two ways. One, having no idea what they want. And two, having blinders on, like I said. I'm going to be a physical therapist. That is all I want to be. Don't talk to me about anything else. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think of it as my job to open up their minds to possibilities. I do assessment, like aptitude and career assessment with them. I take them through some activities that are in my book, um, just to help them think outside of the box and explore and have a direction, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily a destination.
That is great. I'm going to remember that one to tell my son the
Yeah.
importance of having a destination, not necessarily a direction, not necessarily a destination,
Yeah.
because I think that we don't seem to realize the core idea of creativity and flexibility. And this idea that it's okay for us to take the blinkers off because blinkers can either be focus or they can actually be you're limiting your possibilities. You're,
Yeah.
you're actually not opening up to everything there is. And
Hmm.
looking at words like creativity and flexibility, they're easy words to say. I think about what do they actually mean? Like to you, what do those words mean to you, creativity and flexibility?
Hmm. I'll do creativity first because that is one that
Sure.
I personally not struggle with, but I'm always trying to get in touch with my creativity. And for me, it means
Yeah.
letting go of that censor, of am I doing it right? Am I doing it the way it's supposed to be? Should I be doing it like this? All of those things and just letting it flow, right? Not putting a label or a judgment on it.
Yeah.
I like to write, obviously, and I'm dabbling in fiction this year for the first time. And I've always been someone who said, "Oh, I can't write fiction. I can't write fiction." And for some reason, this year, I'm letting it go, and I'm being creative, and I'm stepping out of my box. And I feel like that's what creativity means for me, is
Mhm.
letting go of all of the um, labels.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, great. So in terms of flexibility now, so creativity is letting go. So
Hmm.
how would you link flexibility to that?
I think flexibility is allowing for opportunity.
Nice.
For letting things come as they come and being able to shift and analyze. My process in my book is a real look at who you are, right? Values, where you are now, assessing your health, your connections, your contributions, your play, and looking for where you want to go, but being flexible if that doesn't work out. And I do that whole activity every year, right? It's
Great.
not a once and done. Like I personally do it every year. I do it
Mhm.
with all of my adult clients every year. And my mission is to help teenagers and young adults really have that as a practice of regular checking in to
Yeah.
see if it's still working and having that honest conversation with yourself, and then being flexible and open to either stay the course or change directions without feeling like you have to stay the course because you've invested too much time, or what will
Mhm.
everybody think, or I should continue to major in this because I already have X amount of credits in it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think because there's also that other as a parent, that other side of guidance where you say you should stick with it, you're on this path, you know what you want. But in the flip side of that, another perspective is that that does represent that you take choice away from yourself and that
Mhm.
you take away the intentionality of saying, I'm going to give this a try for this amount of time. And
Mhm.
then, if it works out great, if it doesn't work out, how am I going to pivot? But also, okay, maybe it is working out in a way, but I see that there's so much more that I can do. So I think
Yeah.
it really expands possibilities. So you have to tell us more about your specific coaching philosophy, life drafting. You need to
Yeah.
trademark that.
I'm planning on
Good, good.
it.
That's the lawyer in me saying you have to trademark
Yeah.
that. Tell us
Yeah.
more about life drafting.
Yeah, I also incorporate growth mindset into it as well. Um, and like I used to misunderstand growth mindset. And I feel like if anybody would have asked me 5, 7, 10 years ago if I believed in growing through difficult times, I would have said yes. And that's what I would have defined it as. But it's so much more than that. It
Mhm.
is that opposite of a fixed mindset. And sometimes it's easier to describe it from a fixed mindset standpoint. Whereas a fixed mindset is, I'm not good at math.
Mm,
I'm not a creative writer. I'm
mm,
not a morning person. I'm not a runner, right? Where you either believe that you are or you're not. You're born with it, you have it, or you don't have it. Whereas embracing that growth mindset is like, okay, I may struggle in math, but if I work at it, I can get better.
yeah,
Or
I love
I may have a hard time getting up in the morning, but it means a lot to me, so I'm going to keep on trying.
right.
Yeah, those are all personal ones for me, by the way.
Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Mine is, I can relate to that about running because there was a point at which I thought, oh, I'm not a runner. I can't stand running. And then there was a point in time in my life when I was quite stressed and I would just say, I'm going to get up, I'm going to go for a run. And it became a way of physical escape in my mind, but it really was just,
Mhm.
as if the outer journey of escape was matching the inner side of I just don't want to deal with
Yeah,
this. But it actually
yeah,
became a way to think things through. So
mhm,
it moved me saying,
absolutely.
"Oh, I'm running from this," to saying, "I'm dealing with this. I'm thinking it through in a way that's also releasing stress."
That's
So I
a
think,
great way to process through information is go for a
yeah,
walk, go for a run. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think I'm very excited to read the draft you, but also your version for adults. I really am
Yeah.
excited to read that.
Yeah.
I
My
definitely.
adult version, the way I have it in my head, is so my teenager version is a guided journal. It
Oh,
has like it's 6 months, so it's 24 weeks
right.
guided journaling, has activities, has that goal setting, habits. I really love habit work also, values, career, all of that. My adult version will look at life transitions.
Yes.
Whether that is just a personal mindset shift, like leveling up, whether that is divorce, um,
Mm.
cancer recovery, emptiness, all of those, and all those things that women encounter and have to look at a way forward. I don't know if you're familiar with Suleika Joyad.
Mhm.
I love her work.
Yeah.
And she described it like she wrote a her memoir Between Two Kingdoms about her cancer journey and recovery. And she talked about it as being in that place of no longer and not yet. And that is that space where I want to work with people. Like figuring out how to sit with where you are now but envision a way forward and draft that vision that for your future, with flexibility and creativity. Yeah.
That sounds magical, actually, literally magical, the idea of being in the not yet, but you're still in the
Yeah.
now and you're not what was. So really
Yeah.
capturing that transition,
Mhm.
which is a beautiful thing because
Mhm.
nothing is meant to stay the same. So I
No,
think
it's
that's
not.
yeah, yeah.
And it's the people that hold so tightly that
Mm,
have the most trouble. Hmm.
yeah. So is there a message, a specific message you want to send to anyone dealing with these messy transitions? I mean, everything that you're saying, I feel resonates so much. Is there one thing or a few things you would kind of focus on?
Someone recently gave me this analogy too. When we were talking about emotions, um, let them come, right? Um, sit with them, sit with that, flood a wave of sadness or anger. Let it happen because if you let it happen and let it flow, I read somewhere that it only lasts like 90 seconds, right? And someone gave me the analogy of a train recently that if you feel the emotion coming like a train, if you jump on it with
Mm,
your perseverating and your why me, oh my gosh, it's never gonna get better. If you get on that cycle of it's
mm,
gonna last forever, why is this happening to me? If you jump onto that train,
wow.
then you're stuck on it,
Powerful.
right? But if you let it pass by, there's an end to it. Like if you don't see it with repetitive
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, that's really powerful and so tangible because I think of a train rushing by, and of course, the second you jump on that, you actually don't have control. It's the train driver or the
Yes, you give up
psychological
yeah.
equivalent. You're just on there for the ride, and
Hmm.
you're on there. So if you just let it pass, I think that's very powerful and helpful. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so excited to read your books, and I wish we didn't have to wrap up, but we do. This happens every time. And every time I have a guest, we know that the podcast would not be complete without me inviting you to Barbados to visit me at some point.
Oh,
We have to have a retreat or something. Siobhan and I
I
are
would
just
love
talking about
that.
having a book launch or something. I'm going to start to plan about that.
Please.
So, so I mean, so please let us know. So let's tell our audience, where can we get the latest copy of your book? Where can we follow your work? You know, what's your social media? Please tell us everything.
Yeah, so my website is lifedrafting.com.
Lifedrafting.com. Okay, great.
Yeah, you can email me at candice@lifedrafting.com. I have my coaching business is Optimum Growth Coaching.
Optimum Road Coaching. Okay.
Growth, GROWTH.
Okay.
Optimum Growth Coaching.
Coaching. Optimum
And
Growth
I am on Facebook and Instagram under that name.
Group.
Um, yeah, or my name on Facebook as well. I love that's my yeah, my people are on Facebook.
Yeah, yeah, Optimum Growth Coaching. That's a wonderful name. So I
Thank you.
mean, I know deep down that we're going to keep this conversation going. And we would love to
Yeah,
have you back if you could
I
and
would
talk
love
a bit
that.
more. Please keep in touch with us as soon as your book is out. We'll be the
I
first
will.
to blast it on our social media and I'll get copies. So thank you
Yeah,
so much, Candice. We really feel blessed that you were able to join us.
yeah, thank you so much for having me.